Hello and welcome to this week's DMI Team Talk. My name is Sean Kenny, Membership Manager here at Digital Marketing Institute. And this week we're looking at how to build a buyer persona. So we're basically going to look at the importance of buyer personas, why you should be using them, and then specifically how they affect your digital marketing. We'll also give you a how-to in terms of building them and even link you in with some helpful information towards the end. If you're new to buyer personas, we should start with a definition here so everyone understands exactly what they are. So basically, buyer personas are fictionalized or semi-fictionalized characterizations of your target audience or your customers. And they are based on information that you can either gather with your own data or with research you do. And that information should be around the habits and the different types of things that make your customers tick, how they use products or how they use your services. So basically what you're doing is you're creating a semi-fictionalized profile of all your different customers so that you have that information and you can bring it into your digital marketing strategy. So now that we have a definition, let's look at why they're important. Now, as many of you watching may know, they're mostly developed for the actual marketing communications or the targeting of ads. But anyone who's new to them might need some justification for putting the work in and actually forming buyer personas. So one of the things that buyer personas allow you to do is to understand the customer's journey in detail. And this will allow you to focus your marketing efforts and even tailor the communication that you have in ads or any kind of communication, either online or offline. So to confirm, it's not just a digital marketing, helpful kind of tool that you'll have. This is something you can apply to all areas of your business, as we'll discuss now in a moment. The the fully formed buyer personas will also help you in other areas of the business like product development. So if you work with a product team, for example, if you have fully formed buyer personas and you know all about their habits and what things they like and their interests and what they typically do online, it will actually allow you to inform a product team in terms of how to build different products or tailor different products. And of course, the same is true of services as well. So if your company offer services, you might actually tailor the experience of the service depending on the buyer persona. And really what we're trying to get by creating personas, or many personas in some cases, is an exact look at that customer journey that I just mentioned, how they start their journey, where they begin researching you, at what point or what platform they consider your service or product, and ultimately how they convert. And when you have that full idea of their full experience of researching and buying from your business, you can actually start to basically improve your ROI or improve the user experience of the customer in many ways. So this really feeds into both marketing communications, but also things like product and even the operations side of your business. Once you have or you have gained customer insights, you'll actually be able to align kind of cross departmental aspects of what you do. So again, I've mentioned here a product team, I've mentioned perhaps an operations team. If you have a sales team though, for example, or even if you're looking to inform management, you can get everyone onto the same page because we all know who we're talking about when we can characterize these customers and create buyer personas. So it makes for better internal discussion and internal organization of who you're targeting, why you're targeting them, why you're changing your product or service that you're aiming at them. And it basically allows you to segment out your approach for all different customers, maybe starting with sales all the way down to how things are on the website, what journey a different customer takes, and you can actually dictate that path and tailor that whole experience to them. If you're brand new to personas, let's say you own a small business and you're thinking of maybe actually creating some personas for the first time, it's perfectly fine to start with 2 or 3 because you can always build out more as you go along. For small businesses, actually maybe 2 or 3 is perfectly fine. It does depend on your business, and as a business owner or someone involved in a small business, you will probably know off the top of your head roughly how many different types of customers that you have walk in through the door. But what you can do is you can start from a very basic level and you can segment those into 2 or 3 different personas. If you have a larger business, what building out, let's say, 20 or 30 personas, that will enable you to focus your budget and focus your efforts and tailor it in different ways. It basically helps you segment out everything you do. But as it says here, one of the points on this slide, if you're a smaller business, the real benefit is it will allow you to narrow your focus. And that might be narrowing the focus of your budget, for example. So you're really driving all your budget towards customers that are more likely to convert, and then that's obviously going to affect your bottom line. Now, you may have also heard of negative buyer personas. These are increasingly common, actually, but what they're really designed to do is you can create personas of people who you don't really want to sell to, and it will help you weed them out, or basically exclude them, or reduce the effort that you spend on trying to convert them. Typical examples would be if you have a particular type of customer who comes in and they ask a lot of questions, but they hardly ever buy. That's someone that you really don't want to waste any marketing budget on. So if you're building personas, you may actually build some negative personas, and then this may actually allow you to sort of avoid spending budget, time, resources, hitting those people with the same communications or the same ads, or the same email newsletters and so on. So it will actually save you kind of two valuable resources, which is time and budget. When we look at the kind of questions you should be focusing on when building buyer personas, or the information that you should be looking to gather, they can range from very basic things that will help you segment out two or three buyer personas, that are prioritized, maybe the customers that spend the most with your business. But they can actually, as we've pointed out, help you develop out a very sophisticated list of customers, maybe up to 20 or 50 if you have a multinational company. And then you'll be able to focus on more detailed, much more detailed information that kind of feeds into what you know about those customers, what they like, and so on. Now, here on this slide, we have a few of the kind of broader questions, and these are good places to start when you're researching information. But you would, if you think of the customer journey, you would like to know what devices your buyer personas use. What online media do they like? Do they mainly engage with content formats such as video, or do they prefer listening to podcasts? Do they prefer blogs? What are their overall interests? Are they sports fans? Are they food lovers, and so on? That will even help you build out content. And again, let's go back to the customer journey and think, why would we want to know these questions? Well, let's say hypothetically, if we make up a buyer persona, let's say we have someone who uses an iOS device, and they really spend most of the time browsing online on that mobile device, that Apple device. And then let's say, for example, we know that they're a younger person, 18 to 25, or they're a millennial, and they particularly like to engage with video content, and they're particularly engaged with social media platforms. And on top of all of that, music is one of their favorite interests. Well, in that scenario, we can take all of that information and feed it into a campaign. So we may run a video campaign on Instagram, which is the platform that they like, which is optimized for mobile devices. So it's maybe a shorter video, and it has some kind of music aspect, or the topic kind of leans towards music, a kind of content topic that they engage with and that they're interested in. Now that's a very simple example, and we'll look at in the next slide or so maybe some more specific details that you can be getting into and where you can be researching. But that is how you bring information together for buyer personas and actually create a campaign, that suits them and it's tailored to their needs and where they spend their time as a consumer. So if you want to really hone your targeting of your paid ads, or maybe even your organic activity, building buyer personas is very important. So if you want to create ads that speak directly to the target audience that you have defined, all these different bits of information feed in. And actually they feed in directly because as we see here in this image is very simply some targeting options on Facebook, but platforms like Facebook, Instagram, which you can run the ads off Ads Manager as well, but if you think of Google ads, or indeed LinkedIn paid ads, they all allow these targeting options, and they range from interests targeting, they range from demographic targeting and behavioral targeting as well. The screenshot here is showing you can target people who are in a relationship. You can target them according to their education or where they work, where they're located, what generation they fall into, their political views, life events, and so on. These are actually all the types of information that you would be gathering for buyer personas. So you can see how they directly feed back into the options on paid ads. It will also allow you having detailed buyer personas to separate out ad content or even organic content and actually tailor the communication to suit different people. Let's just take the first thing we see in this screenshot, which is relationship status. Imagine that you're selling a product and it's coming up to a particular holiday, for example. Your target audiences may fall into different categories: people who are single, people who are in a relationship, you know, people who are recently divorced, and so on and so on. So if you have that kind of information, obviously it feeds into your targeting, but it will feed into the type of communication that you have in your ads, what type of copy you put in your ads. And what you can be doing is you can be matching a certain type of copy to a certain type of person to a certain type of targeting. And that's really where you start to become effective at engaging your audience, because your ads will speak to them directly. And advanced levels of targeting increase conversion rates generally if they are done correctly. So again, we kind of started there with what points should you be looking at, devices, what platforms they spend time on, but you can be much more granular than that, even with the options in Facebook advertising or indeed within Google Ads. So if we see, for example, that your particular audience likes to engage with video content, we can build out all the content in that way. But perhaps we can even see more advanced options in terms of what location that they're in. If they're using data mostly, or they're using Wi-Fi, you can stop running ads if someone's on their Wi-Fi so the video doesn't skip, for example. And you can really dig down and make sure you're getting the most out of your spend online. Now let's look at basically how to create buyer personas. Anyone who already has some experience, it actually might be a case that you can really revisit what you have and see if you really have in-depth information. But you should also always be revising buyer personas anyway, because just like the market itself changes, the buyer persona changes. The buyer persona changes in terms of their spending power, or their location, or their preferences, or where they spend their time, and so on. So you should always be revising anyway. It, a dated buyer persona is almost as bad as not having a buyer persona. But indeed, if you're new to the concept of buyer personas, particularly if you have a small business and you're looking to build out 2 or 3, as we're recommending, you might want to start with very simple information, such as you can see here on this slide. So you should basically segment out people by age, location, the language they use, maybe even if they're bilingual, the spending power that they have, so their ability to actually purchase your product, even the patterns to their spending. That might link back to your product. Is your product or service something that people buy repeatedly, that they come back to, that they need every month, that they need once a year, that they maybe only buy once every 10 years, such as a car and so on? You need to have that kind of information, but you also need to link it back to the persona spending power. You need to dig into their interests, and on the next slide we're going to have a look at the most effective ways to do that. But their interests they may range from their actual basic interests, if they like golf, if they like French food, but it also might be a little bit more sophisticated than that, and a bit more digital marketing specific. So what Facebook pages do they like? What websites do they spend their time on? What category of content do they spend most of their time online? Are they a mobile application user, or do they use mobile apps a lot, and so on and so on? And we want to also understand, as you even would with traditional advertising, their challenges or pain points. What are the things that prevents them from buying, and why? And we want to feed that into our communications and how we approach different target audiences. And we also want to understand things like the stages of their life. That will feed into everything, their decision making. And we can get much more detailed with this when we're building out buyer personas. You can have very sophisticated tables. I'm going to link you one at the end that you actually might use, a DMI template, but that would bring into consideration things like psychographics, or in-depth information about their behavior, their online behavior. And when you're researching On the next slide, we're actually going to show you how you might gather research like that, but all of that will feed into, again, that customer journey, how they do things, why, at what time, and so on. Now, if you have a B2B company and you're considering, well, how do I build out buyer personas here? It's really usually mostly the same, except what you do is you just focus on the size of the businesses and take into consideration the different sizes of businesses that you target. But also, really, where you want to focus is the decision making unit. So, in the business that buys from your business, who makes the decisions? Is it the CEO? Is it the CTO? Is it the social marketing manager? Is it someone from the finance team? There's a lot of different categories within larger businesses as well. So you can be very specific in terms of in B2B marketing who you're targeting and in what particular team. Now, continuing on looking at how we should gather information, there's actually a whole lot of ways, and it depends on your capabilities as a researcher, or actually probably the biggest factor will be time. How much time can you put into the pursuit of building out different buyer personas? But you can start with a Google search very simply. Industry articles about today's consumers will actually allow you to understand a little bit more about consumer behavior. I mean, why not have a Google around if there's any case studies done on your particular industry? Let's say anyone who's watching here, if we're just taking an example, is involved in the hotel or the hospitality industry. You might want to begin by trying to understand how people book their hotel stay online. Do they review? Do they go to review sites even? Do they go onto something like Trivago, TripAdvisor? Do they read there first? What part of their customer journey is that in? Do they or what percentage, if we want to be specific, book on a website or book through an agency? And how long does it typically take a customer to go on and book their hotel trip? Should you be retargeting them? Do people convert through retargeting campaigns when booking a hotel? That's the type of information that may be available to you at your fingertips just simply using Google, and it would be massively important to understand if you were in that particular industry. This is just an example using the hospitality industry, and it's true of many, many industries. You'll find a lot of literature, a lot of case studies, a lot of success stories. Some good places to go would be Facebook's own business success stories. You'll find similar pages for Instagram, LinkedIn, HubSpot, Twitter. They'll all showcase how a business did particularly well using their particular platform and the targeting options available on there. So they might give you inspiration for campaigns also. But you don't need to rely solely on other people's research. You should ideally be doing your own research too. Doing your own research is known as doing primary research. And when you're doing primary research, you have a number of options. You could conduct a focus group, you can have an online survey, or you can conduct interviews. Let's just use some examples. Perhaps you target an online survey, which gives the customer an opportunity to win a voucher. Let's just say to incentivize them to reply. But you can start to collect a lot of information from them. With their permission, of course, and doing everything GDPR compliant, but you can ask questions at the beginning of your survey which break down the demographic, and then you can move on to questions that break down their behavior or even the behavior of their friends and so on, and basically tailor questions to their journey. What's their journey online? That's one really simple, great way to do that. And if you're thinking, well, I'm no research expert and I don't have the tools available, actually it's very simple. You'll find free tools like Google Forms, for example, and that will allow you to survey customers easily and distribute a survey out through an email. But your other options are interviewers, which are even more simplistic, excuse me, to conduct an interview. Now, you could conduct an interview with an expert in your industry or simply a customer. Sit down with a customer or a number of customers individually and design questions around their experience to get feedback. And you can start to take that information and you can even start to cross-reference it with what you find online, and you can start to build up buyer personas. Your own website, if you have one and you have access to analytics, may actually be a great source of information about your customers and what they do. Your website will give you information around how long your customers spend on particular pages, their location, their demographic. If we think in particular of Google Analytics, there's a lot of options there that would help you build up a persona. You also have keyword research. So you have tools like Google's Keyword Planner, and that will give you a lot of information about what people are actually searching. What search terms are they using? By what time of month? How often? And how competitive those are? And that will allow you to actually assign keywords to personas. And you can start to see which persona is searching specifically for what and converting on what terms, in particular, what search terms. So that's very important. And then, as is social listening. It's come up in recent DMI team talks quite a bit, but social listening is a very powerful tool, particularly in understanding sentiment around your brand, but also for monitoring relevant keywords again, and maybe matching them back to your keyword research, but also for looking at hashtags and looking at the conversations that people are having on your competitors' posts. What's the tone of that? Is there any insights that you can pull out of that? What are people saying about products? Are a particular type of people or demographic of people saying something specific that stands out and that you can bring into your buyer personas? Now, if you're looking at more advanced buyer personas, and this may be aimed at people who already have built out some in the past, you actually might want to advance them or develop on them using the many tools we have as digital marketers. So Facebook Audience Insights is a great tool, for example, that's free to use, and it will give you information about the interests of different demographics, how many people are actually in that target audience, and will actually give you very specific information if you're looking to run paid campaigns on Facebook or Instagram, or even indeed, depending on your location, even on WhatsApp. Google Analytics is another great tool. It actually specifically allows you to map out journeys. And the screenshot here that we're looking at, it's actually giving you a mix there of information on a particular dashboard, but you can get very granular with what kind of information you have. You can include things like the bounce rate off a page, how many people in what demographic or in what particular audience come onto a page and continue with their journey, how many people add to cart, for example. You can set up all these kind of tracking goals, and you can get a very clear and precise measurement on which particular target audience is more likely to buy or more likely to subscribe or download or be a repeat customer in many cases. Now, if you're looking to track customers through the use of non-paid campaigns or let's say page posts or blogs, etc., you can use UTM codes. You can set them up on Google quite easily. Very simply, what they are is a unique link that you can basically assign, or you can record the information of who's clicking on that and where they're coming from. So imagine you have some non-paid social media posts going out. You can drop in a UTM link there. That link might direct them to the product page, and you can see how many people click on that product page as a result of your specific post. And that actually is another way to test out with different target audiences who tends to click on what, who tends to engage with what type of campaign. You might start to mix up the images you use in campaigns. You might start to mix up the copy that you use, or again, if it's paid ads, you can actually use UTM codes too, but you would have a lot of that reporting information available to you in something like Facebook Ads Manager or Google Ads. If you look at results from past campaigns, if you have that information and you've ran paid campaigns in the past, that is a great source of information when you're building up your personas. Look at what age demographics click the most through certain ads, on what device, at what time of day, and so on and so on. And you can actually link that back into your buyer personas. And also, you should look at your competitors for information. If you have very similar competitors who have a similar business model and they sell a similar product or similar service, the information from what their website traffic does might be just as valuable as looking at your own. So you can actually check out things like that, doing audience research with tools like SEMrush. And SEMrush actually have a free version of their competitor analysis tool, which will be useful for anyone who's on a tight budget or even just wants to have a first kind of glance at what type of information is in there. Now, to kind of conclude, when you come through the process of researching, conducting your own research, looking at the other information out there, segmenting out or prioritizing audiences, and gathering information about their behaviors and everything, you should be able to build up kind of colorful profiles. I said at the beginning, it's a semi-fictionalized depiction of one of your customers, and really you should try bring them to life too, because your customers are, of course, real life people, and it's easy for us in a digital marketing landscape to think of them as statistics when we're looking through dashboards and so on. But really, you want to build out a colorful picture of what they do, what they like, even things outside of your business or things that are outside of what relates to your business. And you really, really, at the end of the day, want to understand how they think, because that's ultimately how they act. Um, with that said, I hope that information is useful to you, particularly if you're a smaller business or a freelancer, or someone starting your digital marketing career, and you need some insights into doing research and how to get those personas together. For more information on this, further in-depth kind of learning, you can of course go over to our membership platform, and you have a link here. Digitalmarketinginstitute.com / students. You can actually sign up for a free trial there for a week if you want to go on and look at our membership platform. On there, on this subject and many, many others, of course, you'll have articles, webinars, podcasts, ebook, case studies, toolkits, and actually lots of other learning materials and tools to advance on. Specifically for anyone who is a member and who's looking for something useful to use right away, we actually have a buyer persona template, which is quite sophisticated, and it records a lot of information. So you might go over to the link that you see there and check that out. Thanks very much for watching today. I hope you find it useful. I hope it's something that you can bring in to your team or to your business, and you can start to really improve your ROI and your communication with your customers. So thank you, and I hope to see you all again soon.